Eddie there. One thing I didn't say is that Eddie actually understudied Charlie Cox's role, Jerry, in London, and then when we went to Broadway, he actually understudied both Robert and Jerry. So essentially learned 2/3 of the play, or essentially learned the entire play, because of course he needs to learn all his cues as well. So kind of a hero, and I don't think ever went on, but worked incredibly hard, and it really is a fine actor, as are indeed all of our understudies in London and in New York. If you're watching, hello to you all. Incredibly talented people, very, very amazing, works so incredibly hard through the entire run. And shout out to the associate director, John Glue, who rehearsed them and also looked after the show, maintained the show, both in London and New York. So, as I say, this huge team of people, literally thousands of people, working together to collaborate to make this. And incredible people at the top of their game in all departments. I mean, really, really special. Let's see who we've got next. Let's just let's do this again. And let's see who's going to join us next. Let's see who we've got. Are they going to join us? It sounds like someone's coming. Who knows? Theatre really is the best, says somebody. You're right. I agree. I agree. I can hear someone, but are you there? I don't know whether we got that. I don't know. Maybe we should just try this again. I heard someone join us. Did you all? Maybe. Let's just give it another go. And see who's going to come. Any comments or questions while we're waiting for the next person to join? Yeah, you'll see all of the cast. I miss live performances for sure. Yeah, I was just thinking, like a lot of my I feel like increasingly my job as a director is to get out of the way of the connection between the actors and the audience, and that we all learn a little bit about what makes us tick. We learn something about our own minds in the act of witnessing theatre, sharing theatre, and it's sort of. I often think in previous productions of mine, I've done a lot, kind of thrown a lot of stuff at the stage, a lot of ideas, a lot of visuals, and actually. It's really Harold Pinter, directing Harold Pinter's work, that kind of really made me realise that actually simplicity is, really key to that kind of connection. And kind of, as I say, getting out of the way, stripping away. And what is the bare minimum of that you can create a piece of work with? So that's certainly what we attempted to do when we were doing Betrayal. And let me just see if our friend Arthur has anything to say about why the next person is not coming. Let's see. What's next for JLC? That's Sam Black. Sam Black was in Cyrano. Well, hey, Sam, wouldn't it be good if Cyrano came back? We've got to get to BAM, right? We've got to get to Brooklyn. Let's there's a lot of people working behind the scenes to get theatre back. Let's hope that Cyrano can be a part of that. I don't know if anyone here saw Cyrano, but I can sort of hear that someone's trying to join, but they don't seem to. Are you there? Is someone there?
I'm here. Yeah. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can't see you, Charlie Cox. Coxie, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, I can hear.
Can you hear me? You can. Right, we can hear you, but we can't see you, Charlie Cox. And I know that there's a lot of people here who would love to see you, and I would too. I don't know what we're going to do about this. I don't know why that's the case. Is there something we need to do? Should we go to someone else first? Arthur. Arthur is keeping us all on track and is making sure that we're running as smoothly as possible. And anything that's going wrong is clearly not his fault. Yeah. Hey, here he
I don't know. I'm so sorry. I've no idea why
I
that's so
thought, you know,
complicated.
these kind of nearly 5,000 people are going to be so
This
bored
is-
of me kind of waffling on about directing plays that.
This is my first ever time ever on Instagram, so you have to kind of bear with me.
I know you don't do social media at all, do you, Charlie? I mean, amazing.
I don't do social media.
That's probably.
But I do now.
You do
Check
now.
me
Here
out.
you are.
Here I am on Facebook. If you don't know where to find me, check me out on Facebook Live, Instagram
No,
Live.
this is Instagram. That's the, yeah.
Sorry.
A good start. A good start. Charlie, it's
Jamie,
so
how are
lovely.
you?
Oh, do you know what? I'm good. This is such a lovely occasion, really. Just as I say, like during this time, you know, you just want to connect to people, you know, and like it's just so lovely to, you know, to see you all and to be reminded of this like very, very, very special occasion.
It's like it's been so. Never before would you be in a, you know, with people and be this intimate and that get that close, and then literally not be able to see each other at all for over a year.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, and you did get really close. I mean, I know that Zawa used to call you the kind of throuple because you used to hang around a lot, you know, like, and Eddie too. But like, you know, like there was a kind of magic that kind of happened, wasn't it, in doing Betrayal?
Yeah, it did feel that way. It certainly felt that way. I mean, obviously, you know, you always hope that when you sign on to any project that you make friends and you get on with some, if not all, of the cast. But we all of us have become incredibly close, and I actually think that we will stay very friendly throughout the rest of our careers, I would hope.
Yeah, and you knew Tom from the past, right? You...
Yeah, I knew Tom from many years ago, but we kind of, you know, he'd been so busy, and I moved over to America, so we hadn't actually seen each other for a long time. So that was kind of a reconnection, and that was lovely. And of course, you and I had worked together. I think it was 10 years prior, almost.
Literally, yeah, 10 years before. That's right, on The Lover and the Collection, which of course was another Pinter play. A double bill of Pinter plays.
That was my first West End experience.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like? I mean, it was particularly special because Harold, of course, was around.
Harold was in the room. I remember. I remember. Do you remember we rehearsed at RADA, right? But we moved to Old Street. Do you remember we moved to Old Street and we did a couple of runs in the Old Street Town Hall on Upper Street? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Upper Street, yeah, it was at the Union Chapel, I think. That's right.
Yeah, and he came to one of our like run-throughs right towards the end of rehearsals. And in if you remember, I'm barely in The Lover. I kind of just come in as the milkman for a brief second. So I was sat watching The Lover next to Harold. And I was so nervous to think, what's he going to think? Is he going to like it? And I looked over at one point and he was asleep. I was like, oh no, he was holding his cane like that. And he'd fallen asleep. And I was like, oh no, this is a disaster. And I felt terrible for Rich and Virginia, and I was like, this is terrible, he's fallen asleep. And then I kept looking, and I realized that he was nodding along, he was listening.
Oh, amazing.
He wasn't asleep, and I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Oh, amazing, yeah. Almost kind of meditative or something.
Yeah.
Amazing, yeah. His kind of commitment to listening to the rhythm, the words, the kind of precision of it, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, amazing. But I mean, that's quite a lot of pressure. I know a lot of people have said it's almost like, I mean, it was like having Shakespeare in the room, you know, like having this kind of icon in the room and coming to see, you know, performance. I mean, that must have been in your head when he was watching a show, right?
Well, but who else who's alive now or would have been alive 10 years ago, who else would have you know, could have made you feel that level of, you know, I mean, he was lovely about it, but like, what other living playwright would you wish to do a play with, other than Harold Pinter? Of
course, but did it add any pressure? Was there a particular moment where you...
I was I think I was blissfully ignorant. I hadn't been on stage. So I think going on stage becomes a little harder and you get a little bit more nervous once you've done it a couple of times.
Right.
But that first time, I was apprehensive, but I was really excited. And I do remember though that you gave me when I first walk on stage, I have a tray with tea and a kettle and a teapot and stuff. And I remember
back when we did props, back in the old days when there was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly, when there were props. Yeah, and I remember on the first night walking in, and there was this, because I was so nervous that the teacups were like shaking, and I had to try and lean the tray against something so that it wasn't like rattling.
It kind of reminds me of, like, was it, I can't remember, in London on Betrayal, where was it like the second preview? I don't know, that
I know what you're
one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Where, you know, there's so much atmosphere, you know, there's that kind of the pre-show music, and, you know, there's like, you know, like the kind of, the curtain slowly goes up, and there's this kind of like image of the three of you, and there's this kind of very atmospheric music, and then you get to your first, you know, your first line, and you've got a beer bottle in your hand, right?
Well, the first line of the play, well,
and
I'm supposed to take a sip just before it. And I took a sip, and it went down the wrong way, and I couldn't. Oh well, and then I couldn't. And Zoe didn't know what to do, so she just kept motoring on with her lines. and I was trying to say, it just got.
I think you even did an ad lib. I've got something in my throat. I've got something in my throat. And I got something like literally like at the back of the circle, like literally crying with laughter. This poor guy going,
and I never ever got over it as well. Like, that was performance 2 of something like 270, and every performance after that, right before I took a sip, I just was like, oh God, I hope it's okay.
Really, every time.
Yeah, it just made me really nervous. That one moment.
Isn't it funny? But again, it's kind of like we were saying with Sutra. Like, every kind of moment, every single moment, even like when you take a sip, kind of actually means something, doesn't it?
Mm.
It almost, every little tiny gesture like reveals something about the subtext, or something about the thought of the person. So it has to be timed so specifically. And I think maybe that's partly about kind of the fact that when there is nothing on stage, it almost becomes that everything is almost in close-up. It's sort of very forensic, isn't it?
Yeah, what was it you used to call it? The macro and the micro.
Right, did I?
Yeah, I didn't rehearse it.
But I mean, like, in terms of like with no stuff, basically, you know, other than each other. I mean, that it's kind of easy for me to say, right, we're just gonna, you know, just this kind of minimalist space, and it's all going to be about all of you. I mean, how was that to negotiate?
It's great question. I thought that I was, you know, apprehensive about that, because having done that play, the Pinter play before, you know, there was you were able to kind of say so much of your dialogue whilst, you know, making a whiskey, or, you know, flicking through a newspaper, or pouring the tea, and there was so much business that you could kind of, it helped you kind of, you know, throw away some of the dialogue. However, I actually found that when we did Betrayal, it was actually very freeing, because it forced you to make every moment about the other person. And I feel like I grew as an actor doing the play because of that, because you can't hide behind anything. You know, there's no moment where you can, light a cigarette. Well, I got to light one cigarette, but you know what I mean? There's no moment where you can make it about the business and hide behind some of the dialogue that maybe you don't quite feel like you've completely embodied or understood or inhabited yet. Whereas because we didn't have that luxury, I felt like, although it was frightening, it was incredibly free.
Amazing. Liberating. Yeah, brilliant. Well, next time you're in a play with like lots of big scene changes and, you know, lots of furniture, you'll be like, what's going on?
Yeah. What are all these chairs doing here? What are we doing?
Exactly. I think one of the things is that, as we were saying earlier, that, you know, that Harold's language is so economical, you know, it's so sparse, isn't it? That, you know, therefore the kind of performances need to have that precision, simplicity, and real focus, real dedication. That takes quite a lot of doing, I think. You know, like I think people don't realise there's always a temptation to do more, isn't there? To kind of show the work. You kind of want to, you know, do the kind of big fireworks, you know, and all the rest of it. But actually, to hold it all in takes extraordinary discipline, doesn't it? Yeah. I think that's right. I'm always with you know, I'm going to reveal my ignorance a little bit here, but when I remember reading the collection,
and I remember rereading Betrayal when you'd asked me to do it. And my first reading of both of those plays was, yeah, God, really interesting. There's not much going on, is there?
Yeah, right.
And then as you kind of start to investigate it, and as you go deeper and deeper into it, and as we get to do it with someone like you, who is, if you don't mind me saying, an expert, in my opinion, on Harold, it's amazing how many layers the onion has. It's amazing how many moments that you just would have gone right over your head in the first couple of reads, but then you see how detailed that. Do you remember we had a dinner towards the end on Broadway, so close to 170 performances, and I'd realised that there's a lovely connection between two lines I'd never seen before until that moment, which is, you know, a year later of doing the play almost every day, where Robert asks Emma when they're in Venice, was he happy when you told him I was to be a father? And of course, when she does say that she's pregnant, I say, I'm very happy.
Oh, amazing.
And it's a small moment, but it's like it took 160 performances to see that connection.
Yeah. Everything is connected. Exactly. He's very clever. He was very clever.
Yeah.
Harold Pinter.
Yeah.
And of course, the part of the joy of the language is the rhythm, right? There's almost like a score, I always think, with his work. You know, you've got to hear it. Sometimes it's almost like music or like vaudeville, like this sort of back and forth. And that reminds me a lot of the squash that is talked about a lot in the play. And I think, you played squash with Tom literally throughout the entire thing, didn't you?
Yeah, we played in rehearsals. He destroyed me in London. We then kind of dropped the ball a bit towards the end of London. And then when we got to Broadway, Tom suggested we play again. And I was like, right. So I took lessons. Squash lessons.
It was so competitive, everybody. Honestly, it was kind of amazing, kind of very lovely.
But to be fair, both Tom and I are both competitive, so it was okay. But so I had a couple of squash lessons and picked up my game, and so towards the end we were having some really competitive games. It was getting, rackets were thrown. I'll say that much.
Wow. We've got an exclusive here, everybody.
Yeah. But on your point, it does, playing of squash does help you understand the play a little bit more. It helps you understand, as you say, the musicality of it, the rhythms of it. It's so many of those scenes, particularly scene 4, feels like a bit of a squash game. You know, it feels like one shot you whack it against the wall as hard as you can, and then the next time you just dink it in the corner and force them to try and get it. You know, it's really revealing.
And I think Tom said that actually that final game that you played was on the final Saturday of Broadway was kind of like emotional.
Yeah.
He was kind of, almost like as emotional as kind of, you know, doing the last performance.
Yeah.
And that's interesting that there's a kind of emotion in the squash.
Yeah.
And all that emotion. And bizarrely, you what?
It was sad, and I was nervous. I was more nervous about the last game of squash than I was about the last performance. And also, we had a son born at the beginning of this year. And
congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, a little boy. And Tom texted me. One of the first texts I got was from Tom saying, "Your son will beat you at squash one day."
So it's so true.
Yeah.
So true. But you know what? It's so funny, isn't it? All that emotion is on you know, in the squash court, but you know, it all has to be contained, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
All that kind of, I always find that so intriguing. You know, that it's almost like this kind of volcanic emotion, all this kind of angst, all this kind of stuff. You know, all these invisible lines to the past. You know, this deep hurt. You know, obviously, literally the betrayal and the multitude of betrayals that are in the play, and then you have to kind of come on stage and say something like, you know, how is everything? You know?
And that, you know, it's that balance. And Sutra touched on this, I thought, beautifully when she said it's, I can't remember the word she used, but she said it's at the same time it's very subtle and very theatrical. And that balance, I think, is what enabled us, the seeking of that balance in every scene, in every moment, is what enabled us to enjoy this play and continually feeling like we were being challenged right up until the end of the run, which was a whole year. You know, we were still looking for and finding moments. I was still looking for and finding moments where you could strike the right balance between complete honesty, but also Harold knew that life sometimes is also very big and can
Right.
be and can be very intentional, and finding that balance, I think, was, you know, I don't think I'll ever get there, but it was made the work so much fun.
Yeah, and it's so funny. He once said to me that all of his plays are comedies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's kind of
Wow.
funny. It's very funny, but it's a very funny play. I mean, and maybe it's so funny because of the pain. You know,
Yeah.
like he kind of, I don't know,
It's
like
so strange. It's so strange being in a rehearsal for a play like that, where there's you and Sutra and John and like a handful of people who are kind of watching the rehearsals. So by the time you get to running it, no one's laughing. And then
Right.
you do the first performance, and we had 900 people in the first performance, and suddenly there was people laughing all the time, and it was so. Initially it feels a bit rude, you know. You're like, it doesn't feel, and then of course you learn to kind of understand the rhythm of that and how it's all factored in some way, and you kind of learn to play with the audience and enjoy that. But it's a strange moment when that happens.
Yeah, so sort of unexpected.
It's quite jarring.
I bet. Charlie, it has been a real joy to speak to you.
It's been so lovely. I'm going to take one tiny quick story, because I just listened to you and Eddie. Yeah. Eddie cracks a joke, and you do on the stage. He cracks a joke, and I can't remember exactly what the joke is, but he cracks a joke, and Tom and Robert and Jerry, Tom and my characters, both completely blank him, just no reaction whatsoever, and he kind of goes like that and walks off stage. And one of the last performances, Tom and I decided that we were gonna, just for one performance, we were gonna find it really funny. And we didn't tell Eddie. And the look on his face, I'll never forget. He cracks a joke, and we both burst into hysteria. And he just didn't know what had happened. It was such a nice moment. But he was fantastic, wasn't he, Eddie?
Amazing. Yeah. Well, you all were. It was unforgettable. Charlie, Coxie,
thank you for inviting me. This is so fun.
Well, maybe this will be the first of many Instagram lives.
Yeah, exactly. Say hi to Big Booty. She's next.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Love you guys. Bye.
Great to see you. Bye. Charlie Cox, you can go, Charlie.
Yeah. Hang on. How do I do that?
Leave. I love it.
How do I get out? Leave.
Leave. How do I get out? Press leave. Honestly, the fun, you know, kind of very, in a way, like 4 very, very different people, and everyone backstage as well. You know, lots of personalities, lots of, you know, really kind of big characters, and you know, and yet somehow kind of came together and kind of created this amazing family, and totally embraced as well by the Broadway community as well. There really is such a thing as Broadway community, and it's I'm sure that we'll talk about that a little bit as we go. But it's a very unique place. And hey, there's Kat Kingsley. Who else is there? We've got anybody else? Yeah, poor Arthur. I agree. Having to kind of keep us all in check. Anybody else? Any other friends here? Have we got any other actors here? Let's just kind of comment or say hi or something. But let's. It's so good to see you. It's so cool. What a lovely moment. Okay, let's. Oh, hang on. Right, that's. Oh no. Okay, here we go. I will get used to this. This is, you know, this could maybe be the first of many JLC Instagram lives. If this was something you were interested in, maybe we could get some other people involved. I don't know. Maybe who else would you want to see? Who else would you want to hear from? Maybe we could talk about some other productions along the way. That'd be kind of cool. Who knows? You know, we're working on some stuff. We're kind of developing some ideas for the future as soon as we can. So let's hope that we can get in the theatre sooner rather than later. Now, you're here, and I've sent you a request. So let's try that again. Betrayal Broadway. Okay. Cyrano, yeah, maybe that'd be kind of cool to do a Cyrano IG live. And here is Zoe Ashton.
Surprise!
You're here. You're here.
How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so good. Have you? They're saying I have to reconnect after an hour. Maybe maybe that's the case. Maybe if we lose it, maybe Arthur's going to tell me this.
We can have an interval.
Maybe we have a little interval. I don't know. We'll see if we get chucked off. Then let's hope that the 5,000 people that are here will jump on again.
Hi, 5,000 people. This
apologies.
is my first Instagram live.
This is your first
Instagram
Instagram live.
saying hi to you at the bottom. Did you see that?
I saw you say I'm here, and I was like, oh, that's good. Come and join me. I've sent a request. Everyone's excited to see you. They're all saying hi, Zoe, and it's always so lovely to see you. And we go way back, Zoe. I mean, like, it's been amazing to collaborate with you for like many years.
Over a decade.
Incredible.
It is incredible. It is incredible because I feel like Salome, the piece that we did together, Oscar Wilde's Salome, back in the day, was so at the beginning of your journey, which has grown in this incredible way. It was certainly at the beginning of mine. And so I feel like we've kind of grown up together.
Totally. Totally, yeah. And I suppose there was look, Arthur's saying that the Instagram limit is now 4 hours, so we're going to be fine. Great.
Oh, thank goodness.
Not that we're going to talk for 4 hours, everybody. I mean, you never know. But
I was kind of looking forward to an interval, kind of remembering the theatres being open.
Have you been watching the others?
I haven't. I couldn't. I was
couldn't get on.
I was working out with a personal trainer on Zoom. This is how exciting.
Oh my goodness. You're so glam.
I am.
That is amazing.
I didn't feel glam while I was doing it. But what's everyone been saying? I'm so glad that we're doing this. I'm so glad the gang are virtually back together.
It's just been a great time to reminisce about the whole thing. And as you say, kind of, think about what is so special. I just keep thinking about the sort of power of live performance to sort of help us understand the kind of complexity of our fragile and complicated lives. I mean, that's exactly what Pinter does, isn't it? You described it. I think I said you almost said you had a love affair with Harold Pinter.
With Harold,
your mind.
I actually had 3 men on the go during Betrayal. Yeah, it was just riffing on what you've just said and thinking about our collaborative history together. Salome was like a young woman lost, trying to find herself, restricted by male gazes and constraints of society. And then suddenly we get, do everything else that we've done. And then we get to Betrayal. And it's kind of been like a coming of age party moment. Certainly for me, you probably came of age much long ago, much before me. But it did feel like, oh my goodness, this is really going to be one of the first really adult explorations of the fragile human condition that I've done on stage that relates almost immediately to my point in my life and in my time as a woman, and all the dreams and desires and expectations that go along with that. So when we started, it was natural that I was kind of drawn to Harold because I was so I've always been interested in Pinter's women, as you know, and it just felt really key to get underneath his intention and to just commune with him. That was like a word I kept saying all along all of the runs. It was about just soaking up his intention with Betrayal, and of course once you start to do that, you realize it's an extremely personal story for him. It had lasting resonances throughout his life, not just as a professional piece, but also as a piece that contains so much of his own personal life. And he's a fascinating human being, writing other fascinating human beings.
100%. I mean, he really understands what makes us tick, doesn't he? Like, he, you know, really understands, and he understands that, you know, that there is that kind of, we often use words to conceal what we think and feel, rather to express them. You know, we're always trying to, you know, kind of, we often wear a mask, don't we, to kind of hide our difficulties or our pain or our anxieties or insecurities. And it's fascinating that you talk about, you know, Pinter's women, because they've had a little bit of a bad rap over the years, in a way.
Yeah, and I understand why. I really do. And I think it wasn't until I actually stepped inside Emma in Betrayal and stepped inside our production and let the vibrations of his words move through me, that I thought, no, there is a huge power here. There is huge nuance here. There's huge fragility here. There's the whole spectrum of human emotion. And so I know that they've got a bad rap in the past, but I wonder if it's just about actually letting his words work on you and work inside of you to really understand the absolute monolithic talent that he has. And the way that he actually understands masculine and female energy and is actually really obsessed by it. You know, we talk so much about Emma's, well, we had to talk about all of the characters' beginnings and endings, because obviously our play worked backwards. But she moves through the orbit of these two men into her own orbit at the end.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I could revisit all of the other Pinter women after doing Betrayal and go, oh, they kind of all do that in a way. And maybe we've had productions that haven't understood that on the nuance level that I know you understand it. Who knows? But then, Jamie, you're talking about masks and the way Pinter puts us in these incredible masks and, you know, represses our emotions. And we turn up on day one at rehearsals and we have no mask because we have no stage. We have the stage, but we have no props. We have nowhere to hide. So that in itself was this incredible push and pull tension. With Harold's repression, and then this kind of ultimate freedom that we had on that bare stage, you know?
Yeah, and that's so interesting, because Charlie talks about being liberated by having no stuff. And I'm sure that actually walking into rehearsals, as you say, for the first day, it was kind of like, oh my goodness, there really is nothing. Yeah. But it allows those kind of power dynamics, well, between all three, but certainly between the men and the women in these plays, you know, as you say, it sort of feels like that. You can those dynamics are amplified when there's nothing other than the people.
And look, maybe you've already talked about rehearsals. I'm so sorry I couldn't watch that.
No, we haven't. Please.
The rehearsal process, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all four of us, was one of the happiest of my life, if not the happiest. And the happiness came from what you've just said, being able to just sit in whatever truth came up for you on any given day and have absolutely no filter between the three of us. And then obviously Eddie, who comes on and, you know, completely blows everyone out of the water, gets the biggest laugh of all time, and then
walks off again.
But in terms of that threesome, that throuple, to use our rehearsal nickname, you know, to be able to just feel each other and the characters through that unbelievably thin membrane because of no set was exhilarating beyond belief. And I think it excited us all, you know, it physically and emotionally excited all three of us, because so often there's so much gubbin between you and your other actors, and you feel like you've got to step on there and like perform something. But this is literally about all of us connecting to our truest selves and bringing it to the room. and I've said this so many times before, but I'll say it again, you'd be surprised how much trust it takes to do betrayal.
Yeah, that's such a brilliant point, and I've heard you say before, I think, that it's called Betrayal, but actually backstage, the title is really Absolute Trust.
The title of the play backstage was Absolute Trust. And you are an ultimate matchmaker, I feel, in your casting. I don't think I would even call you in your, casting team, casting people. I would call you matchmakers, because you find somehow energetically the recipe that will work. And I know that there are people, we've talked about this, who actually want to do the opposite sometimes with a play like this. They want to put 3 actors in a room who are going to have some tension or electricity that's going to kind of fuel the darkness of the play.
Yeah,
I don't know how you get results like that.
I don't understand it. I mean, I guess the individual processes and all the rest of different choices that people make. But yeah, I've heard people talk about a kind of anti-ensemble where you throw a load of people in together that are not going to get along, and they're all going to fight for their own corner, and that somehow that's going to lead to fireworks. I mean, that just seems like sort of antithetical to everything that we try and do in the rehearsal room, which is, as you say, hopefully create an environment with the entire team, with the sound team, with the stage, our amazing stage management team, who are all there to, to kind of create this atmosphere, of real confidence and make everyone as comfortable as possible, and know that failure is okay. Trying some stuff out that isn't going to work is totally cool, and that of course then leads to new exciting discoveries.
Well, in talking about new exciting discoveries, I mean, what people might not know is Broadway was a total surprise for all of us, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
A lot of times you sign up to a show and it's like, oh, it's going to go here, it's going to go here, it's going to go here, and you finish here. You're like, great, I can project this year of my life. And this was just like surprise after surprise after surprise. The transfer was an incredible opportunity to breathe new life into what we'd created. An incredible opportunity to test that trust between us again. Bigger stage, bigger audiences, more expectation, you could say, sometimes on Broadway, because of that absolutely relentless culture that you feed off when you're on Broadway. It matters, and it deepened. I don't think we could have imagined it, but it did. Yeah,
it was a privilege, that, wasn't it, actually, to be able to kind of come back to a piece of work. And I remember we didn't re-rehearse it.
No,
did we?
I thought you were mad. I thought you were completely mad. You were like, no, we're just going to kind of reblock it for the space.
Yeah, just get on. Well, again, it's total trust. It's total trust in those 4 artists on stage. And also what I did really cherish was we had some really great discussions, some really great kind of note sessions after each performance.
Yeah.
And being able to really be forensic about tiny little beats, tiny little moments.
Yeah. That was heaven. And also the endurance of Broadway. We all took our hats off to all of our American friends, UK friends, European friends, the incredible community that makes up that square mile, of New York City.
Yeah.
And there are shows that have been open for a year. There are shows that are all singing, all dancing, all sweating. There are shows that are blood, sweat and tears, again, running for these epic amounts of time. And we were kind of peeping in, weren't we? We had our limited run and knew that we hopefully couldn't be shut down if everyone thought we sucked. And actually to feel like we could just keep playing was the most incredible feeling. And to feel welcomed by a Broadway audience, there's no feeling like it in the world. I remember scene 1 on that first preview. Do you remember? I think it was the first time I ever got a laugh in scene 1.
I was always I was fascinated
ecstatic
about that, about the kind of American response. We were talking a little bit earlier about, as we were saying, that kind of the sort of repression of emotion, kind of, it's very kind of English thing, isn't it? It's very English playwright in a way. We sort of that very kind of stiff upper lip is
Yes.
not revealing what we really think or say. And I think maybe that's what Americans found so funny. It struck that first line, you know, Charlie says to you, so how is everything? And you say, oh, not too bad. And there was this big raucous laugh. I guess because the kind of all the anxiety and pain was vibrating inside. They could see the truth. And you just say, well, it's not too bad. Clearly you're having a terrible time.
It's so true. The American response, the American response to British repression has never been so clearly marked out as it was in scene 1 of Betrayal on the first night of our Broadway experience. But the other thing that was really interesting was, and you know, riffing again on this idea of absolute trust, if there were laughs, or if there were suddenly new places where people didn't feel as responsive as they did in London, probably because of a London reference or a quintessentially British reference or something like that, we just had to hold each other with that kind of just, again, it was like all three of us had this electric rod that had been built in rehearsals that we could rely on to take us through absolutely any scenario on that stage. And it was a matter of just navigating that new audience and trying to like harness them and keep them with the production that we made in that rehearsal, because it's so easy to lean into a laugh or to get panicked if there's suddenly not the response that you're used to. And instead the three of us just had to key into this electric current and stay as true to the play that we made on day 1 in London, you know, Black Swan Studios.
Amazing. Yeah, and you did that. I mean, the discipline and the focus. I remember saying, you know, there's so much energy, isn't there, around Times Square and Broadway, that whole kind of thing. It's electric, and it's very I'm sure that it's kind of crazy to think that it's maybe not like that at the moment.
Yeah,
so devastating for so many people there.
Absolutely.
But that's when it comes back, I know it's going to be electric. But somehow, when you step through that stage, or somehow we needed to find that kind of quiet. We kind of needed to find that kind of restraint and that focus, didn't we? And I was saying earlier that I don't think that people realise how difficult that is to achieve that, you know, to kind of really connect very, very deeply to, as you say, the kind of like deep pain of the human condition.
And it went very deep.
Keep a lid on it.
It went very, very deep. In fact, after we closed on Broadway, did I tell you this? I found myself having to cry at the same point as scene 5 every night. For a while.
Oh, really?
The muscle memory of that play went so underground, because it had to in order to do Pinter's words, right? You've got to be really connected to the groin and the gut and all that, you know, messy, interesting stuff that comes through those channels. And I found myself having to cry.
Interesting.
I'm like, if I couldn't, I would kind of walk around a bit like a really bad kind of I don't know, mime or something, like going like trying to squeeze tears out to just get that exorcism and that release. And I would know what time it was, you know, because we did that amount of time, that you could kind of sense, oh, curtain would have gone up here, you know, we'd be going into scene 3 here, and it would always be exactly the time that we would have been in the middle of scene 5, which is the big reveal scene in Venice, which is extremely emotional.
That is so fascinating, isn't it?
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
So weird, amazing, absolutely amazing. Well, it's not surprising. They kind of like the way you commit to everything, Zoe, it's so inspiring. You're a true artist, and that's why I love working with you. In fact, you plummet to the depths, you commit to that, but you do everything with such great wit. You're one of the funniest people I've ever met. Make me laugh, and I love talking about theatre and culture with you. I think you're just an amazing person. And to see that journey, you know, it's so interesting. Like, I can't imagine anyone else understanding this more than you, in terms of Emma being totally liberated from any kind of she's not defined. The men try and define her, don't they?
Yeah.
She is released from that. She releases herself from that, and then she goes her own way. She kind of is like walking off into her life. And
she owns the affair, you know. Yeah. And I think there was always push and pull about that in the audience, and that was one of the other visceral experiences that I had on that stage, with the moments sometimes where I could feel people slipping away, going, I'm backing away from this woman, I think she's terrible, I think she's a homewrecker or whatever. Or alternatively, people leaning in and going, I understand, I've been here, or I get it, on a deep level. And that was just incredible to sense. And she is unapologetic in so many ways. And again, I think I only could get there because of my boys, Charlie and Tom.
Yeah, good people.
It couldn't have worked going to those places if we hadn't have had this true, pure, real connection. So many times you find yourself having to do interviews for things going, we have such a real, true, amazing connection, and it's not true.
Yeah.
So it's sort of worth saying that there are times when you've got to kind of overcompensate, and then there are times like this where you hit the bullseye and you get to go to some depths you didn't think you could, because you're so held and so seen by your colleagues and by your leader, and again, as always, by Harold.
Amazing. Isn't it funny, we're talking about, in the time of, you know, ultimately real disconnection, we're talking about that real yearning for connection, and that is one of the things that, you know, theatre, you know, really allows us to experience in a connection with each other, backstage, on stage, and then most importantly with the audience. And as you say, when someone really goes, I understand, I've learned something about myself, or I've seen my life in that, that's when you realise, oh yeah, theatre is important, it is necessary, and it is exciting.
Absolutely. I'll never forget a lovely man who came up to me in CVS. I think it was after our third or fourth preview. And this is the other really exciting thing about working in New York. People really go to the theatre, you know. Not that they don't in London, but for whatever reason, I ended up bumping into so many people who'd seen the play everywhere in that city. You know, I don't know necessarily what that difference is, maybe geography or whatever. But a guy came up to me in CVS. I can't remember what I was buying. Probably some kind of foot lotion, because I was throughout that brilliant play. And he said, oh my God, he was like, I know. Like the first thing he came home was like, I know your experience. And there was a guy, you know, in his late 40s, maybe early 50s, communing with Emma's experience, going, I absolutely have felt that in my life. I've been trapped, I've been let down, I've been betrayed, I've gone in search of other things. You know, we had like a therapy session in R7 of CVS.
Wow.
And he's not a woman, he's not a, you know,
but he just felt
necessarily a Pinter expert, whatever. Yeah, and he got it.
Oh, remarkable. Amazing.
Yeah.
To be
really
cherished.
Amazing.
Let's hope we can get back and chatting to people like that.
I know. I wanted to say a huge hello and thank you to all of our incredible crew as well, Jamie, you know, and all of
London
our
and New York
neighbours and friends in that community. We will be back. The atmosphere and the love and the soul of that place is too strong. We won't be away for long. I just want to send everyone a huge kiss.
You're amazing. You're so lovely. And perfect, Zoe. So good to see you.
Love you.
Can't wait to catch up soon.
Me too. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Okay, it's love.
Bye.
Bye, 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 bye. Amazing. You can sort of see like these. It's like a real reminder to me about the real kindness of these people. It's a lot of compassion, a lot of love. Very, very, very lovely people. In fact, the entire team. Again, just going to shout out to stage management crew, all the electricians, the sound team, the creative team, the producers, general managers, everyone in marketing, box office. I mean, literally everybody involved, both in London and New York. Thinking of you all. Keep in touch. We will be back. Just can't wait to see everybody. Okay, cool. Everyone's saying thank you to Zoe. Such an amazing, amazing person. Incredibly, such an inspiring person. She will be doing some stuff with JLC soon. I'm sure we can announce it soon. She's just like a real artist. Okay, so I think Tom is ready. So Tom's going to join us now. Let's see if he's here. He should be here at any moment. So also have your questions ready for Tom. I'm just going to have some tea out of my from my show merch mug. Oh, you're here. Look, I'm drinking out of a Betrayal mug for the moment, for the occasion. Mark the moment. T Hids. T Hids. Tommy, how are you?
Lovely to see you.
Oh, what a treat to see you. It's been too long.
It's been a long time. It's been a year and a half.
Yeah, crazy. You've been busy.
I want to check. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little quiet. But
if I put headphones in, I think I've got such an old phone. If I put headphones
we can
in,
hear you then.
Offended because then I think
I'm pretty sure we can hear you. That's better. That's better. But let's see if our friend Arthur, our hero behind the scenes of tonight, is. Let's talk again, Tommy.
Yes. 1 2 1 2.
Perfect.
So is it weird if I keep a headphone in? So I feel like I'm being. I saw you earlier.
No, you look cool.
A theatre director and Instagram Live is an interesting.
I know.
An interesting equation.
It is, but maybe I'll get better. Maybe I'll get better at doing it.
Okay.
It sounds good. I was thinking
One or two. Is that for sound? I mean, does that sound to you?
I think it's the same. So whatever's most comfortable.
I mean, at this point.
I love it. Tom, this has been such a huge journey, hasn't it? I mean, it's like.
By the way, it's amazing to see everybody involved, to see Sutra and Eddie and Charlie and Zoe, and hear all their recollections and remembrances. It was such an extraordinary time that I think of often in this past year of lockdown and the fragmentation of our social bonds and not seeing anybody and isolation. And the whole point of theatre is about connection and telling stories that connect us in a building. And we're all sitting in the same building. It's sort of so I've thought about this whole experience a lot in the last year.
Yeah, no, I bet me too. Of course, it started as a gala performance. I remember,
yes.
As I was saying earlier, we did the Pinter at the Pinter season, celebrating or marking the moment of commemorating 10 years since Harold's death, by doing all of his short plays and then doing a charity gala in which you had to raise thousands for Amnesty on that night, which I'm very grateful for. But we ended up doing, of course, a scene from Betrayal, and that's how it started.
That's how it started. Amazing to think that was the spark of the first idea. I was so honored that you asked me to do it. It was an amazing evening that evening. I remember it very well. What was it? October the 18th?
It was on his birthday. Yeah, that's right. His birthday.
His birthday, or October the 21st? From memory. 18th, yeah, the 18th.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
And you were in the middle of this extraordinary season of Pinter at the Pinter Theatre in London. And it was a huge celebration for... Oh, hang on. Sorry, my phone's wanting... 1 second, sorry.
Sorry. You're getting text messages. Your mate saying...
No.
Are you on Instagram Live?
Sorry. Yes, this amazing thing you did, which was to celebrate his work in the presence of Antonia Fraser, his widow, and there was all these actors who have had some connection or relationship to Harold Pinter over different generations. I remember some former members of Betrayal casts throughout the years. Jeremy Irons was there, who obviously played Jerry in the film, and Sam West, who played Robert at the Donmar Warehouse. Simon Russell Beale had done the Hot House, and who else was it? Indira Varma, was she there?
Indira and Papa
Yeah.
Edu, yeah, some really amazing actors.
She had done some Betrayal, I think, Emma, in days gone by. Anyway, it was an extraordinary evening of celebration of his work, and Lee Evans was there, and it's very funny. And you asked me to do this scene from Betrayal, scene 5, between Robert and Emma, where Robert discovers, or has discovered, in a hotel room in Venice, that Emma's been having this affair with Jerry. But it's the most extraordinary confrontation. It takes about 10 pages, which isn't a confrontation at all. It's an invitation to admission. But I do remember it was this Harold Pinter's got such comedic gift. Some of his plays they're very deep and very profound, and about love and loss and power, and in an evening full of a lot of laughter, this had this extraordinary quality of silence in the room. And we rehearsed it for 10 minutes, I think.
Less than that, maybe, yeah.
And it was really interesting, just because we read it, obviously, we read it in front of microphones, and afterwards, I remember Antonia Fraser saying to both of us, perhaps you'd like to do the whole thing. And it suddenly was a very exciting idea, because it's such a beautiful play. I'd read it when I was at drama school. I'm fascinated by its kind of brilliance and its structure. I've always been. I became age appropriate faster than I thought I would, but that's the nature of age. It feels like I read it and thought, oh no, that's a long time away before I'm the right age for that. But yes, and then I remember you being at the table with Antonia, and Antonia saying, perhaps you'd like to do the whole thing, and you leaning across and going, well, maybe we should do the whole thing. and I went away and read the whole thing, and then I think quite quickly we were on, weren't we?
Well, I remember speaking to you literally the next day. I think I sent you the play the next day, and then the day after that, I think we sort of pretty much said, let's go ahead and do it. And amazingly, you know, we were all available, and that the Pinter was free, so that we could do it as a continuation of the season. And that's kind of this sort of magic. It was so effortless. Things aren't always like that, are they?
It never happens like
life.
that. It never happens.
Often there are obstacles. Whereas, and also I remember us talking about who should play Jerry, and that we had both thought of Charlie, and he wasn't originally available. Do you remember? And then
yes.
And then he then became available. It was almost like kind of, wow, this kind of karma of this is just kind of amazing.
It was extraordinary. Yeah, it never happens that way, where all the people you want to be involved, and it happens without, almost as if the road was already paved in some way. Extraordinary magic, and a very auspicious beginning. And I can't believe it turned into almost a year and a half, or in terms of our preparation, but a full year of performance of this one singular play.
And I think it was like over 270.
272, I think it was. I may have misremembered that, but it was 12 weeks in London, 17 weeks in Broadway, and to do the same thing 272 times is an extraordinary act of repetition and investigation, in that every time you do it, you find something else. Like playing a great piece of music, you think, oh, this movement is, by the way, I can't play great pieces of music, so I don't know why I've used this analogy, but
just keep going.
But it's taking little moments or little motifs or riffs, I suppose, that recur through the course of a piece. And I imagine in that repetitive recitation, you find more depth every time. And that's certainly my experience with this play, was that I would start to almost feel the structure. I would sort of feel the structure of the play like a physical entity. You feel like you're inside, you're under the hood, as it were, of the car. You're inside the engine. You just know exactly how the engine works. And the more time you spend with it, the more connections you can make. And that's the end of my mixed music and automobile metaphor.
Is it you? I don't think you had done Pinter before. I don't think you'd been.
No, I'd never done Pinter professionally. No, I'd done a bit at school.
Right. And were you surprised? Were there any particular demands? That, you know, being in a Pinter play. You know, what are the demands of being in a Pinter play? What does he require you to do? What was the kind of what was interesting about doing his work?
Everything. I mean, he has an extraordinary ability to excavate under the surface of things, under the surface of words, actions, and behavior. And he, I think, is a very much a playwright, probably of the English psyche. I hope he wouldn't object to that. In fact, that's unfair. I think it's a human thing. It's beyond the national identity. But what I was thinking of when I said that is some playwrights, older playwrights, Elizabethan playwrights, where the meaning lies within the words. If you're doing a Shakespeare play, the characters tell you what they're feeling often in the most beautiful poetry. And they say what they mean. Whereas Harold Pinter's characters, the meaning lies beneath what they say. Characters often don't say what they mean. They say something that's in conflict or contradiction of what they mean. And the great joy of playing Pinter is that you're doing both at the same time. So you're investigating the subtext, or as you and I used to call it, the subwoofer.
I love the subwoofer. It makes so much sense.
The subwoofer, yeah. But there's a baseline that underneath, to carry on my musical analogy, there's a baseline underneath everything, which you need as an actor to tune into, a kind of frequency of things that are under the surface, which are primal and deeply human. And they are about love and loss and grief and betrayal and power and desire, all these incredibly human things that we experience, and a part of the experience of being alive. And over the top of that subwoofer, that bass line, are these melodies and grace notes, which often are, you know, in contradiction of what the bass line is, which makes it very fascinating acting challenge, because you have to summon what's underneath. You have to summon the subtext, and it could be extraordinary pain, extraordinary loss or suffering. But you also have to play what's on top of it, which can often be very light, very dexterous, very civilized, very well-mannered, charming or comedic. So you know, at any moment in the Pinter play, a character could be charming and menacing, or seductive and in retreat. And those are thrilling tensions to play within Pinter, and no less in Betrayal, in these complex dynamics between these very complex people, Robert, Emma, and Jerry.
Yeah, amazing. I think one of the we're so used to kind of thinking about Harold's plays as being about, you know, the battle for supremacy, this kind of like, you know, these kind of power battles, this kind of and this kind of menace. But actually, it's interesting that I think what was really remarkable about your performance was this kind of real connection to the loss and the pain underneath it, and your ability to really go, you know, to those plummets, those depths, was just kind of remarkable. And I seem to remember you saying that the clues in the text, which
I think
why.
Yeah,
Why
there are so many. There are clues in the play. Always listen to the playwright. He'll tell you what you need to know. You know, the play is called Betrayal, and you know, that's the first clue. Is an actor diving into that, you have to go, okay, what does that mean? Betrayal is painful as an experience, and there are all sorts of ways betrayal can emerge in your life. You can betray yourself, you can betray another, you can betray a lover or a friend, you can betray your ideals, You can betray someone's trust. And so there was already I think, I love that excitement of having to dig around in this very profound human feeling. And particularly Robert, what I always found in that first reading at the gala was that here was this incredibly controlled, on the surface at least, a very controlled, charming, collected man who was intelligent and professional. He was successful in his life, a respected publisher, and underneath the carapace or the facade of that composure is someone whose soul is completely shattered. And so the challenge was to present that, the mask of control, but also investigate the vulnerability behind the mask. And one of the big clues I always found was this conversation between Robert and Jerry in the fourth scene about whether boy babies or girl babies cry more. And there's one way of reading it, which is that, because at this point the audience knows that Robert knows that Jerry's had an affair with his wife. And so there's a lovely dramatic irony and tension between what's happening on stage and what's happening in the audience. And the audience is aware, like, what's Robert going to say? Because he knows. And Jerry has come over to Robert's house. So there's this truth that's hanging in the air, which hasn't been spoken, which is an affair with the woman upstairs or wherever she is. We never specified it. And Robert gives Jerry a drink, and that's right, she's just putting Ned to bed. So Emma is putting their son to bed. Or is it their son? There's a paternity question in scene 5. When he finds out the affair has been going on, he says, how long? And Emma says 5 years. And Robert says 5 years. Pause. Ned is 1 year old. So there's already a challenge to the actor. What does that mean? Robert has to do the math. Who's the father of our son? But in the previous scene, Emma's putting Ned to bed, and Robert decides to start this discussion with Jerry about boy babies and girl babies. Isn't it true that boy babies cry more than girl babies? Wouldn't you say? And Jerry's a bit perplexed, certainly in Charlie's, my esteemed colleague's performance. He sort of doesn't understand why this interrogation is happening. But I always thought that was a clue about Robert, it's pinned to telling you that Robert, this boy baby, cries. And he cries painfully and deeply. But when across the course of a performance do you show that stuff? So yeah, that was over the 17 weeks in New York. The pleasure of it was that there are these, the music of Pinter's play is so precisely delineated and so carefully mapped, and to play it from the beginning to the end every night was a pleasure. It was never the same, and the audiences themselves would bring their own experiences in. Every individual and every audience brings in a life experience which they are carrying with them into their perception of the play. And then there's an alchemy which happens between all those individual members of the audience to create a character of the audience that we can feel across the footlights. We can feel what the energy is, and that's a thing that is unique to being in a theatre, to the live
performance, and also the kind of unpredictability of that, isn't it? I mean, that's what's so amazing, as you say, like the kind of depths of what you all achieved, but also the kind of, we also had a lot of fun, and also, as we said earlier, like,
that was great.
Harold himself saying that the plays are all kind of comedies, that they're all very, very funny, witty plays, and sometimes things can go a little bit awry as well. Right? Sometimes things can go a bit wrong.
Yes. Well, of course,
was there anything that kind of was? I mean, I know that there were. I read them all show reports. I don't know if everyone knows that. The end of every performance, our brilliant stage managers always write down, you know, what went on, so that the directors and producers and all the rest of it and the rest of the creative team can kind of see what happened. And like, so there were definitely some things that were quite interesting. Do you have any particular?
Oh, endless. I mean, endless. That for me is the thrill of the live event, of the theatre, is that I still get the thrill of it as an actor and as an audience member myself, which is, this is happening right now. It's not happening before, it's happening in front of me. I can see it, I can hear it. There's an atmosphere in this room. I can sense it in some way. And it's so thrilling. It's thrilling to feel it. I think audiences respond in different ways. And of course, things go wrong on film and television all the time. And I'm so lucky that I've been able to do that as well. And occasionally you get a blooper reel. But when things go wrong in the theatre, everybody's there to witness it. And there's a kind of magic about that moment, because it reminds you that it's live. It reminds you that real life is spontaneous, and that spontaneity is really the source of so much. God, I mean, I suppose the things that the constant challenge for me was this melon in the seventh scene, which I think Eddie mentioned. I mean, so many things about that scene can go wrong. Already the stakes are extremely high. Robert and Jerry have agreed to meet up for lunch. The question in the audience's mind is, will Robert confront Jerry with the confession that he knows about the affair between, you know, and these two old friends are meeting for a civilized lunch in an Italian restaurant. And there's something in Robert's suppression of his pain and anger and fury, which gets displaced into, firstly, the waiter, the great Eddie Arnold, but then the food that they're eating and the wine that they're drinking. And so I don't know how this came about in rehearsals, but something, because in the text, of course, Robert's anger is displaced into a tirade about the demise of modern prose literature, and how there's two men of books and letters. You know, Jerry's a literary agent, Robert's a publisher, but modern prose literature isn't what it used to be, and it's certainly no comparison to the great poets, W.B. Yeats in particular. And at the same time, they're eating these starters, I suppose, slices of Meloni, or prosciutto and Meloni in Robert's case, and drinking excessive bottles of Corvo Bianco, which you have to make sure as an actor you've got drunk, so that by the time you ask for more, you've drunk it. So it is a technical challenge, but this melon, I would occasionally, the sort of Robert's aggression would be taken out on this piece of melon, and depending on the ripeness of the melon on a particular day, it was a very slippery scene partner. At one point, I think Eddie mentioned it, it went in a sort of perfect mathematical arc into my wine glass.
Yeah.
At one point, it went into the audience, which I think was a bit of a surprise for the front row.
So, like, someone got
but
it
there
on
was one occasion,
face.
yeah, someone sort of landed a piece of melon, lands in the lap, you know. It's like extra dimension to the performance.
I'd sell it on
but
eBay, quite frankly. I'd be making some money out of that.
There you go. But there was one where I was in the middle of this rant about modern prose literature, and the melon slipped off I stabbed it with the knife, and it slipped off the fork, and it went onto the floor, and instinctively I just pushed my chair back and bent over and picked it up and ate it. And I heard this extraordinary gasp from, you know, 1,100 people, 1,200 people, over 1,000 people. Get a sort of like, ooh, you know, and the noise of 1,000 people gasping is significant. And then I looked into the eyes of my esteemed colleague Charlie Cox, which were very twinkly, because he sort of couldn't believe, A, that this piece of melon had slid onto the floor, B, that I had picked it up and eaten it straight away, and that it had got this reaction from the audience. And And then it looked like we might both lose contact with the play and lose contact with the scene, because I love Charlie so much, and we've experienced so much together, but he's one of the few actors in the world who, if he starts to laugh, he's got the malicious laugh, and I could see laughter rising in him. I thought, oh no, I'm not going to be able to finish the scene. And there was a pause, and then the audience clocked that exchange between us, and they laughed. And then I think Charlie turned to them and pointed at me, and they laughed again. And I turned back and had to look down to compose myself. and I can't remember how it was broken. We both took a sip of wine at the same time, and then there was a spontaneous round of applause. But I think, apart from just something going wrong, I think the applause was nothing to do with us, really. It was the audience's delight that they were watching something which was live and real.
Yeah.
They were witness to it, and they were included in this magical moment, which didn't happen the night before and wasn't going to happen the next night. And I feel that's the best thing about live theatre. And there's so many other things. Once we broke a wine glass accidentally, and we had to get Eddie back on to bring another glass on. Or people would repeat the same lines.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, but it's amazing, as you say. That's what makes it so unique. It's so special and unforgettable, isn't it? You just literally don't forget those moments as an audience member. And I'm all for that. Like it's all all those things that happen. That's all. It's all good. That's all part of the fun of it.
And I
isn't
think
it?
I had a friend in that night actually, who came back, and he said the pleasure of that moment was so pure, as distinct from anything else. You don't, of course, you go to the movies, or you watch things on television or on streaming, and things make you laugh. But if you go to the theatre and you're part of that moment, that's a uniquely theatrical thing. It happens because it's live, and it's very special. It's very special for everybody, I think. Yeah,
very special. The talking about very special, what I've got to say, here we are. You're nominated for a Tony. You made your Broadway debut. I mean, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
I still can't quite believe it. And I just want to thank everybody who has made this possible. And I'm so honoured to be nominated for a Tony. I sort of can't. It doesn't feel quite real. It never does. Because I started acting when I was a teenager in school plays, and the idea that one day I'd be nominated for a Tony Award, which is just sort of, the gap from there to there, the gap from A to B is so, it feels like trying to long jump across the Pacific Ocean. And I'm very, very honored to be nominated. I'm in extraordinary company. My fellow nominees, all amazing actors. And congratulations to you too, Jamie.
Thank you so much. I'm very
nominee.
I'm very honoured, and for the entire team. And what I love about the kind of Best Revival nomination is that literally is for everybody. And I include all of our friends in London, as well as all the people that work so amazingly hard to make it happen in New York as well. But being a part of that Broadway community was just incredibly special.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It is. The idea of Broadway when we started Betrayal was, we didn't even think about it, and that's where we ended up, at the Jacobs Theatre on 45th Street, from August to December in 2019. And there is something absolutely magical about the energy of those people on that island, in that city, on that street, those streets leading off Times Square, 45th Street, the Jacobs, we shared dressing rooms with the Majestic and the Golden. And I remember I had a dressing room on the first floor. So every single performance, I'd be getting ready and putting on Robert's things, and I would have my windows open, and I would always hear the guys outside front of house at the Imperial for Ain't Too Proud, and I would say, we always hear him calling out, "Ain't too proud, come on, come walk this way, ain't too proud." And that feeling of being part of a community and a tradition of acting and performing, which is respected across the world, and it is really unique. And when other plays open on Broadway, the companies of every other Broadway show send these signed good luck messages to the company who are opening, and we receive that. And there's a very unique energy, which I found very touching and poignant to reflect on in this period of lockdown, because it's all about our social contact. It's all about making connections. And the difficulty for everybody in this last year has been that to keep each other safe, we've had to break those connections in some way. We try to keep them going remotely, but to be in crowds, to be in audiences, to be in the same building, connecting over the same thing, laughing at the same line, being moved by the same thing. And it's very touching to think of, and especially all those people, it's worth mentioning almost all of them who made it possible. And the people who often aren't, who dedicate their so many hours every day, which add up to weeks and months and years and decades of service to this extraordinary art form. People like Frank Lombardi, our stage manager, and Diane, our producers, Wendy Orshan and Jeff Wilson, Bruce Klinger, our company manager, Ianth, who greeted us every evening, Danny Paul, our dresser, who makes sure all our clothes were clean and pressed, and or made sure our props, Fred who made sure the props were all ready, Mike and Matt, and our New York producers, Ben Lowy and Tony Marion, and many, many more that I couldn't
Gavin and
list.
Gareth and Adam Spears and Emily.
Gavin, Gareth, Adams, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so many people behind the scenes who make this possible day in, day out, who make sure there's just enough, orange coloured sort of, what would it be? Sort of hazel coloured liquid that looks like whiskey in the glass every night. Or
The detail,
make sure
the
you're not going to
literal
walk on stage. Yeah, not going to walk on stage without your wedding ring. Because it's a play about the dissolution of a marriage, and God forbid you walk on stage without the wedding ring. And Rick and Michael and Kendall, who are so much a part of the experience at DKC O&M, and the Schuberts and Bob Wankel, the Schuberts who own that theatre and who allowed us in at such short notice. And I'm trying to think, have I forgotten anybody?
I mean, literally, I mean, like, we will have missed somebody, and apologies, but it really, the real
Matt
gratitude.
And Mike and Dylan and Jess Mill. I know, I
amazing.
think you mentioned Jess Mill before, but Dylan and Jess Mill, who came in to be our understudies and join in with Big Booty every night. We really didn't have to do. It's very sporting of them. And people, it's an extraordinary thing every night as well. I have a funny memory about walking out of the stage door every evening onto 45th Street, and in some of the most clement and balmy weather that New York can offer in the fall, in September and October, in shirt sleeves, and greeting people who wanted playbills signed, which is such a Broadway tradition. And also you get to know, this is what's amazing about Broadway, is you get to know the mounted police who are there just to make sure everybody's safe. And they're so much a part of the fabric of the community. And because there are so many crowds of people, they just need to make sure people are safe. And they all want everybody who's there, from security to front of house to people who are working at the bar or selling drinks, or taking coats, or in any way helping this thing happen every night. They want people to come away from the experience with a warmth and a sense of meaning and purpose, that they were a part of something. And that takes such an extraordinary collection of human energy. And I feel very moved by that. I was very moved by it at the time. You know, an English company coming over to New York, and we were so warmly welcomed. And I think there is, you know, we just have to sort of to pay our respects to it, because at this time I know Broadway's been through, the community's been through a very, very difficult period in the last year. And I think that human energy is vital to our society, and I can't wait to see it come back and to be there myself and go and support other Broadway shows. So yeah, I feel very grateful to everybody, and it's lovely to remember it. God, we had a good time.
We had a great time with all of those people, both on the West End and on Broadway.
And it's a unique thing. It's a unique honor to join the lists of those actors who've performed on Broadway. It's a deep honor, and none of us take it for granted. I know that, because especially us as actors, we know you sign up as young people because to do something for a living that we love. You never imagine that you're going to perform at the heart of New York's theatre and have access to everything that New York brings with it. I mean, New York is such a wonderful city, and I know you talked with Charlie about it, but being able to run down between a matinee performance and an evening performance to a squash court in Midtown and then run back in time to have a bite to eat and do the evening performance, or go for a walk in Central Park and then come in, have an idea about the play, or be reflecting on what happened last night. And if there's a parade and the traffic gets shut down in the city, and you walk down the street and you feel like Manhattan has become pedestrianized because there is no traffic because of some parade, and it was an amazing thing, and I feel we were so lucky, just so lucky and fortunate to do it, to be invited to be there. And we had extraordinary houses. We had amazing audiences, full audiences. I'm aware of how fortunate that is, to have full houses who want to come and see this English play about three people who love each other and hurt each other, and it goes backwards in time. and there's a bit with a bitter melon.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. And when you say crowds,
how do you feel that, Jamie? Crowds. You know, we're all desperate to get back to life in that way.
I mean, I just think of all the freelancers here in London and all those people in New York. I just think, you know, and everybody. I mean, the whole world. Obviously, there's been so much suffering, and you know, I just hope that we can move through this now, and you know, get back into those crowds and get back into those, you know.
Yeah.
Just have those experiences again. I'm sure we will.
I know you agree with me, but I think there's something very moving about being part of a large group of people, and knowing, I'm sure everybody who works or has been to a theatre, or everybody watching this art conversation, everybody joining in, we've all been somewhere in our lives where we felt part of a group of people experiencing something that feels bigger than the individual, and it's actually being part of that crowd that has a kind of transcendent quality, and to feel a part of something that's bigger than you is very important for human beings. I think very important for all of us. You know, you just want to kind of get lost in the crowd and be part of something. So yeah, I can't wait for a time when we've somehow we've found a way to live with this situation we're living with, and those crowds can come back and Broadway can re-emerge.
Yes, exactly.
Resplendent and triumphant. Yeah. But we had so much fun. I'm aware. I don't know how many people are watching now. Is it about 5,000 people? I probably talked for too long. People have got bored. But I'm aware that I'm aware that just grateful to you guys for tuning in and listening to our reminiscences. I think, Jamie, didn't you decide to do this today or this week because it's the 2-year anniversary of starting rehearsals? Is that right?
That's right. Yes, I think we would have been in. I think we would have been still in the rehearsal room 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, kind of crazy to think about it. It's like Eddie said, it's almost like a dream. And then exactly a year ago, we were in rehearsals in the same rehearsal studio for the Seagull, which we managed to do 5 performances of before lockdown. And I'm hoping that we can bring that back with Amelia Clark and Indira and amazing company of actors. So hopefully that will come back too. And hopefully we'd take Cyrano to BAM too. So there's lots of stuff that we're planning. As I can see all sorts of people here that were with us tonight. You know, Lindsay, our great stage manager in the West End, and Danny, our security guard. So great to see. And Evie, our great producer from London.
Oh, everybody's watching. That's sweet.
Jersey. Yeah, so cool. And look, we've got. I think we should go now, and we should just, as I say, thank you so much.
Well, Jamie, I just want to. Yeah, you go. You go. You say we.
No, go on.
Well, I just want to thank you, honestly, because you had the vision to put this whole thing together and see it through, and you know, you asked me and Zoe to do the gala reading and put the gala on and create this experience, which has been meaningful for everyone at lots of different levels. And amazing. I know for all of us in the company, we'll never forget it. And you made this happen. You made this possible. And it's very, I'll just never forget it. It's a hugely meaningful memory for me, the whole year of my life. And I really want to thank you for that, for your kindness and care and clarity and trust. You trusted us so much, trusted me and Zowie and Charlie and Eddie too. So yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you. It's a real privilege to know you. It's a real honor to call you a friend. I think you're a remarkable human being, an incredible actor. You know, I think, you know, I've read somewhere that someone said this performance places you up there amongst the greats, and I really truly believe that, Tommy. I can't wait to work with you in the future. I genuinely mean it. He's an amazing man, and you're all incredible people. So brilliant, everybody, to share this with you. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much to the team, everybody at JLC, everybody on the team there, and everybody at ATG, Adam Spears, and everybody for supporting us.
Yes, again, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam, so much.
All of the team in London and New York. Anyone we haven't mentioned, again, huge thank you. It's amazing. It's like cause and effect, isn't it? Like everybody plays a role. It's like everybody's such. You know,
this is a team game.
Yeah, 100%.
4 people on stage, or 5 if you include Emma and Phoenix, who played Charlotte. But
amazing young actors. We could keep going all night, Tommy, and I would love to talk to you all night if I could, T-Hits. But really lovely to catch up, and I hope to see you in person soon. And we can say goodbye. We can say goodbye to everybody now, and thank you to Arthur, who runs the JLC.
Thank you, Arthur.
Social.
Thank you, Arthur.
Yes, thank you for keeping us in check. Everybody behind the scenes today. And also, as I say, perhaps let's do this again. Maybe we'll do some more JLC Instagram lives or something if that's interesting. Yeah, who knows?
JLC is Jamie Lloyd Company, yes?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, because you said JLC a lot, and I was like, JLC, was it?
You just wanted the clarity.
Yeah.
This is weird. I want to say my name.
No, well, I can say it. JLC is the Jamie Company, the company at the forefront of British, I should say, international theatre. The programming, the glamour, the mystery, the progressive,
Culture. It's a culture.
the culture.
I can't.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
it's a vanguard.
It's a big team of people that are making it happen. So.
But look at what you've done, Jamie. You've done so much in the theatre in the last 5 years, the last 10 years. But look at where you've given so many people so many opportunities, and I think you've changed the way theatre is made. So my hat goes off to you.
Thank you, Tommy. That means a lot. As I say, there's so many people that are doing that, with us, and it's privileged to work with them every day. So I can't wait to get back and creating more theatre for everybody.
All right, I'll sign off. All the best to everybody. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon.
We'll see you soon, everybody. Thank you so much. See you very soon.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Now we're gonna leave.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Good night.